This week on Pivot with Purpose. And the 7 years now that I've been potting, and I always say this, it just wasn't a spot here that made sense for me and that gave me the quality of production. Why does everything in Orlando is 2 chairs and a black wall and a mic that I don't want to use? I was dealing with Carlos for a long time. I barely saw you here.
I know. And I remember he would talk, Carla's coming. I'm like, wait, who
is this Carla?
Because she is in the studio and you love this girl and I need to go in there and meet this Carla. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just got to make sure.
I'm all over the place since I'm so aloof at times that I'll say things or I'll move around and I'm like, did that come off wrong? You're still a married man, you know? And it's like, not that I would flirt because you're Spanish, about 13 shades too light, but kidding. No, I'm not. Hey friend, you're listening to Pivot with Purpose. This is my show where I pivoted from shit I'm 30, where I was dreading turning 30. I had a failed marriage, failed engagement after that, and I don't have a relationship with my immediate family. But through it all, I came out the other side with a thriving business, an unexpected radio morning show of my own, and a platform where I can reach millions of people and help them walk in their truth. I am now celebrating every step of my journey into continuously finding my purpose, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Sometimes this journey looks like shit, and it probably sounds even worse, but it's still our journey, and I'm learning right along with you to enjoy it. There's always a rainbow after the rain falls. Now, if you need advice in pivoting in any aspect of your life, relationships, career, spirituality, send your questions or story to askcarlawilmaris@gmail.com or shoot me a DM at Carla Wilmaris. Now, let's start the show. Welcome back to another episode of Pivot with Purpose. Your girl, Carla. Thank you for coming back for another week of talking about walking in our purpose. It's a little bit of mess, but you know what? There's always a message behind it. This one won't be that messy because, one, it's an episode that's way overdue. I've been saying I'm going to do this episode for a long time. And I know they're probably like, this mother sucker don't want to do this with us. And it's like, no, really, I do. But I do everything last minute. And they have responsibility, like real life responsibilities that are important. And I just feel bad saying like, do it tomorrow. So sorry, but I'm really excited about it. So you guys know that for, my goodness, as long as I feel like now I can remember, since Pivot kind of came back with video, and the best things that you guys have seen so far has been here at Hi Hello Labs. And I talk about them constantly, but I don't think you guys have seen, I know you haven't seen, at least here on the pod, the faces behind the show. So dun, 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 I present to you the Mr. and Mrs. behind the curtains, behind this entire place, behind the entire production of Hi Hello Labs and all I do, Carlos and Carolina. I love this. Carlos, Carla, Carolina. Ay, como que tiene un swing.
I know.
Tiene a little ring to it.
And we're all wearing white. And it's, you know what?
Very like angel-like. Yes. I like it. It's happened. Yes. So before we start the episode, this podcast wouldn't have restarted after I came back from Jersey if it wasn't for me meeting Carlos and Carlos being who he is, essentially, now that I've known you guys for a while. So opening and welcoming and allowing me to come in here and talk my shit, essentially. Because I never found a place here in Orlando. And the 7 years now that I've been potting, and I always say this, it just wasn't a spot here that made sense for me and that gave me the quality of production that I get in Atlanta or that I get in New York. And it was like, why does everything in Orlando is 2 chairs and a black wall and a mic that I don't want to use? And then the cameras is like, well, my phone does better quality than that. So when I walked in here, it was like, man, that was March 22. You had opened November 21.
That's right. I think it hadn't even been a year yet.
No, it was just a couple months.
No, you were a few months. Yeah, and because it took me forever to figure out how to get in contact with him because I found it through like a peer space. And I'm like, I want that place. I'm like, this is fake. It's a scam. It's not really a spot. It can't be here in Orlando. Like, no. Finally, I figured it out. I'm like, oh, here they are, and they're downtown. So it was perfect for me. But I actually want to ask you, because I don't remember a lot of that phase of when I first started. And I was dealing with Carlos for a long time. I barely saw you here.
I know. And it was the beginning and I was, figuring out being a mom and being an entrepreneur and doing all the things. And I remember he would talk, Carla's coming. I'm like, wait,
Who is this Carla?
Because she is in the studio and you love this girl and I need to go in there and meet this Carla. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just got to make sure. But
I am very aware, especially when someone is married, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm all over the place and I'm so aloof at times that I'll say things or I'll move around and I'm like, did that come off wrong?
No.
Or could this be it? But you still have to be careful with it because it's still, you're still a married man, you know?
Mhm.
And it's like, not that I would flirt because you're Spanish, about 13 shades too light, but kidding. No, I'm not. But at the end of the day, it's just like just a certain respect, and I couldn't wait to meet you. And I'm like, where is this wife he talks
and
of?
I appreciate you, and you are so incredible. And I remember when Carlos kind of first told me there's this girl Carla, and she's so energetic, and like this girl's a star. And I was like, wow. And when I met you, I remember seeing that, and so it's really. It is overdue to have this conversation, but it really is such an honor to be on the show and to see like everything you've done since we've known you. I mean, obviously you were so impressive when we first met you, but to see everything you've done since then and just how much you're growing and to get a glimpse into your personal too. And like, you are literally the best mom ever. Like the best mom ever.
Thanks, because I look up to you guys. And I be like, well, they're doing it, so I can't complain.
Credit
I'm
to
like,
its deserved, man.
So
it's not for you.
this is so awesome that
I can't complain. One thing that I remember when I first met you, I wanted to know more about you. I'm like, who is this guy? I like energy. I don't care how nice the place is or how good someone is. If I don't feel good about them, then that I just can't do it. Yeah. But you were telling me, Carlos specifically, where you came from, right? What you used to do before. And that was super impressive to me. I said, oh, he's taking a risk with this place. Like, this has to work, essentially. So can you tell us more of how Hi Hello Labs came about? Because it wasn't just like a snap your fingers.
I think a little bit of you coming to Orlando and not finding places like this was really like, okay, we got to do this. But honestly, it was God just spoke and we did.
But you worked somewhere. One thing I do remember is you saying I worked somewhere for X amount of years.
I was in production for 13 plus years, and we did everything from small documentaries all the way to large scale arena events.
Sheesh.
And anything in between, which is TV, radio, all of that. I was creative director, and I scaled from literally nobody, like graphic design, small dude, to like the international creative director. However, when you're at a company for that long, you're just building someone else's kingdom, someone else's vision, and there's a lot of, a lot of characters in there that you really don't like, and some that you do. So when I left, we went through a process of like, what are we gonna do with life? And honestly, I know we're gonna talk about this later, but special needs kind of threw us into doing something greater, which was our son that he was diagnosed with autism back when he was three. So the need pushed the place.
So essentially, there was a need in your life that propelled you to start this company, and you probably didn't even realize the gift that you had, or the gift that you had, Carolina, yourself. And it's like, how can I make that and monetize that myself? Because it seems like when you're working with a big company, it's like, all right, well, it's the white man that got it, and he's got the money, and you need all this funding. To me, it's still wild when I watch some companies and like, yeah, we raised $30 million. Well, who's giving you this money? Because where do I find it? I want some of it too. Like, what do I have to do? Are you on OnlyFans? Like, where did you get all this money? But you have a gift, which is in production and decorating like this, when I thought that it was her decorating. Or you have the gift of creating all the knickknacks for events and putting things together and itineraries, where I'm like full-blown panic attack when it's time to do anything in person. And then for myself, I'll have conversations with people about production or ideas or how to execute, and they're mind blown. And I'm like, I do that every day. So people that are listening right now have something they do on an everyday basis. Like, I watch my friend Dex, she's a project manager and she manages people. And I'm like, you're so good at managing folks and being on the computer and being essentially a loner because she's behind a desk. And when I think about myself in accounting, I shouldn't have been there. Like, I should not have been there. I used to get all the time, wow, that's different. It was, because I was really doing it out of survival. It was what paid the money. But one thing that I admired about well, it was Carlos, the ones that told me to get out, but it was Carlos and as a couple that they don't take whatever money.
Yeah.
You know, I've turned down tons of money and I've had people be like, well, that's stupid. And I'm like, I don't know.
Mhm.
One of them being, they were supposed to actually, remember the podcast that somebody came in here and they wanted to do a pod and you're like, I'm going to send them over to
The
you.
Gentleman's Club.
And then I was like,
Yes.
I don't think it's for me either.
Mhm.
Yesterday, Paola was on the phone with me. She's like, did you know that this Gentleman's Club has a podcast? And I was like, actually, I do. And she's like, your cousin was on it. I said, oh, he's so ratchet.
Oh.
It was perfect. Perfect. He fit in right
Okay,
in.
so
He's a trick. He
found
loved the
his
strippers.
person.
That place
Yes.
that's his home. But you were like, it just doesn't align with me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to align with me either because
Right.
I am very conscious of the team members that I have and what they have to take in every single week, like every day, all these hours of intake. But during 2022, I came back and I was going through some really hard times. Y'all know, go back to the episodes. Like, they're there, right? Abuse and all that.
Side note, when I met you and you came here at High Hello Labs, I felt like your vulnerable spirit and like how just in this place you were. And I was like, man, I really like how true she is. And you hadn't even met
Carlos,
me.
I was fucked up. I don't know how you...
But I was like, I like her because she's so honest and true and real
Authentic.
and authentic.
I remember you
I
saying
don't think she's
very
BSing
authentic.
me. Like, and I have this perception, and I'm thankful that we have it as business owners because we can perceive like
Discernment. you mean?
discernment of
Discernment.
like who should we and whatnot.
Work
But
with.
anyway,
No, I always wondered
complimenting
that. I
you
don't
on
think I
that.
had ever asked you because I remember I was in such a dark space,
Mm.
but at the same time, I couldn't give up.
Mhm.
I had a baby, I had
Mhm.
my daughter, I had still ambition and what I wanted to do, but I just felt so everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I
Mhm.
couldn't see past the pain and the feeling of just nothing is going to work.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I start testing out different
Mhm.
things. I'm therapy 4 times a week, literally spending all this money. I'm back into church hard. And then I was like, let me get a tarot reader. So I remember doing a tarot reader over the phone. And I remember the first like 3 minutes, she mentioned narcissism. And I was like, whoa, whoa, wow. And I recorded it. I'm like, boy, you know. But even like astrology doesn't. So I did an astrology person in Atlanta. And I was just testing it because I have people that listen. And I feel like in our community, sometimes we're like, oh, so what sign are you?
Yes.
Like, do you know your sign?
I do know my sign.
What's your
yeah,
sign?
Cancer.
I don't know what it means. What are you?
Aries
Aries? Oh, your birthday's coming.
tomorrow.
Oh my God. Actually, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so I'm like, Taurus, we have all these signs, but to
Yeah.
me, I'm not going to move my life or make life decisions based of what astrology says or anything like that. To me, it's
Right.
fun. But during that time, I'm like, my audience sometimes dibbles and dabbles in it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I brought a tarot reader in.
Mhm.
And she was cool. I had found her online. I think it was the same girl that read my tarot over the phone. So I
Mhm.
bring her in, and then I get a text message one day at
Mm.
the house. I think I was I already had some recordings. And I'll never forget, I laughed
Face.
so hard at the message. I just thought it was so funny because I know you were being serious.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, I gotta talk to you. And this is my perception of it. And I was like, yeah, what's up? It's all over text. So, I really love having you here. And I know what I'm about to say. I might lose you as a client. But I just, this whole, the astrology or tarot reader, like we can't have that here. Blah, blah.
This is what I said. I said, no witches, no Wiccans, no tarot readers, no Ouija boards. I don't mess with the spirit world.
He was like, no. He's like, and I understand I might
You can
lose
do that somewhere else.
He literally said that. He was like, someone just not here. And I laughed so hard because I feel like I don't know if you probably thought that I would be like, what? Like, it's not that serious.
To be quite frank, like I thought, well, and especially with this Me Too movement and all that stuff, it's like, who are you gonna offend? Like, you don't know who you're gonna
Right,
offend.
right.
And, like, I'm not
Well,
gonna
and
get
we were
sued.
so new in business. Like, we weren't in a place to be losing people, So, and I remember telling him, like, I'm all for it. I'm with it. Like, just, be mindful. Like, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Like, we
Exactly,
don't
yeah.
want to, we want to be, and even in that, like, be Christ-like, like, be
Right,
loving in it.
right. And if
Don't
you
come down with shame and condemnation and all these
No.
things. Like, just
And you
know,
didn't. You
but-
were just like, for me,
Yeah, like
and
our
for us
boundary
here,
is this.
I don't like it. And I laughed because I was like, man, I don't care about that shit. Cool. You'll never see another tarot reader. I don't got no business bringing a tarot reader on. Like, and I don't. And if I would have listened to you then and stopped messing with it, like, just because sometimes I feel content, right? Oh, I need more episodes, or I need whatever. I'll just explore. And I'm curious. I'm always really
Yeah.
curious about other things. Like, I know my faith, I know where I walk, but then I'm like, what is Buddhist talking about?
Right.
And, you know, and
right.
I love learning about different religions, different cultures, and that ends up being one of them. And then I went to Mexico, and that's when I got really sick off of someone trying to read my energy, because that wasn't even what I was supposed, the episode was about. She said, can I read it? And I was sick for 12 days. And I talked about it on the pod, and I left the episode up. And she was upset about that I did a follow-up and talked about what happened. But I said, hey, this is my truth. I left the episode up. If somebody resonates with it, go for it.
Do
Like,
your
go
thing.
talk to her. But I got sick. You told me I would get sick if I didn't work with you, and I would come back to you. And I ended up with 12 days of anxiety in my stomach, probably as big as it is now.
Was that when?
That's when my stomach blew
oh
up
my
for 12 days. I
gosh.
couldn't take care of the baby. And she told me all that. She's like, you'll come back to me when you can't work, when you can't take care of your kid, and those words, for whatever reason, I opened something up that I shouldn't have been messing with. And when you know better, you do
Rebuke
better.
that in Jesus'
Yeah.
name.
Literally, it took that first Sunday I couldn't go to church.
Wow.
Because I was so sick. The following Sunday I said I have to, and I was terrified. And my friend Wendy was like praying, and she's like, "Girl, there's no spirit that can be over you. We
That's
are
right.
blessed. We got the blood of Jesus." Blah blah blah. She's talking to me about all of this. I finally go to church. The second I left church, I was fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
My
I
stomach went
believe
right
it.
back
that
down.
Stuff's real. All that
It is
stuff's
so real. I believe in all of their spirits they talk about.
Absolutely.
I believe that when they pull those cards, they know something.
Oh, they know. They know
They
something.
do.
Yeah, which is why we're so adamant about it here, too. Like,
Right.
listen, we don't need all that. We know what spirits and what energies are here. We
Right.
don't, and we know which ones we don't want.
To add a little
So,
comedic
but yeah.
value to it, I remember the following day. Coincidentally, my mom was here that night, but you didn't know she was here. I said, Mom, pray this shit out of that place. Anoint it. There's witches and Wiccans. I don't know what's going on. Out. And dude, she left sticky notes with scriptures on the wall.
I walked in the next morning and I think I found sticky notes in the bathroom stall. That's how much she just prayed over this place. I'm like, oh my God.
No, and
won't do
I'm
it.
glad. Although, like, shout out to the girl. She got so much business. I remember her
Yeah,
getting
good for
like
her.
messaging
Bless
me. She's
her
like, "Oh
heart.
my gosh, I did great," and people have been still messaging me. And she made all this. I was like, you know what? Good for you. That might work for some. It just doesn't work for me. It's
Yeah.
not what I want, because I've gotten the results that I want from going to what I believe in my higher power, right?
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes you dibble and dabble too much, and you get too curious, and you go deep. And so that's just
Yeah.
one thing that I appreciate, that you essentially had the balls to come and tell me. Because some people won't, with the fear, like you said, you were in the position to lose
Right.
a paying customer at the time.
Right, right.
You know, it's like, if I'm paying, what you doing? You know, and
Right.
some people might say that, well, if I'm paying you, how dare you tell me who I can and can't bring in? Just turn the camera on and let me do what I do.
Right.
But that's not the way energy works. And that's not the way your integrity works either. And if you're working with certain people sometimes that you just don't, their spirit doesn't align with you,
Yes.
you shouldn't do it. It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter how much money, because like more money, more problems at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you get to a place where I'm even at right now, right? At certain times that I'm like, man, okay, financially I'm okay, but I have to watch who's around me, you know, because, and it happened to me with a team member, right? And it's like, I realized, and I don't think I've ever said this, and whatever, I don't care. The two people that I ended up losing that ended up doing everything that they did were in that realm. And it started getting more of that. And I was like, God had to separate me from those two in one way, even if it was through betrayal.
Yeah.
He had to separate me from that in order for me to elevate. And
Well,
that's when I
sometimes
got.
we're so stubborn and we cling on to people and situations, and it's like God's like, buddy, I'm trying to help you out, but you keep like chasing your tail
Right.
until it's like something drastic needs to happen for your own protection.
And it absolutely was for my own protection, because right after that separation is when we closed the iHeart and Will Packer deal. You know, and that was like lingering for a while. And I'm like, why aren't they signing this contract? Why?
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
that contract cannot be signed. And that level, you can't get to that level until we remove things that do not align with you.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that in business, from this place to seeing it grow the way that it has, I mean, I feel like you guys are on the same trajectory. It's moving really fast.
Yeah.
And
And we don't even realize it because we're so new.
You're in
and
it.
we're just like,
Yeah.
oh God.
No,
like
but
some days we cry, some days we laugh, some days we whine and dine, and
yeah, and
it's
it's
just
like
it's a roller coaster.
I call it the champagne problems, right? Like it's great, it's amazing growth, but then there's like growing too fast can also be a problem if
Absolutely.
you're not ready for it, if you don't have the team to back you up with it. And so for us too, it's been a little bit of a season of like, all right, hold on, let's make sure
right.
we have the right things, the right people, the right systems in place to really sustain this and so that this doesn't take us out in the process.
And I love that because I feel like we're on this parallel path, right? Because even for me, this year I said it was my year to stay where I am and really work on my back end. Because if I can take on 5 more clients right now, right? And be like, oh my God, give me $20,000 a month clients. I'm going to crash so bad.
Yes.
And then there goes my name, there goes my reputation, there goes my business. And now what? I made all this money in 1 year and it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna keep going for all the years to come. And I'm only about to be 37. Yeah, I got years to come. Can you imagine?
Spring chickens over here.
We are. We really, really, really are. You look so good. Every time I look at you, I'm like, this mother I need to stop eating. Gosh. And then here goes Carlos with his gym selfies all the time. And I'm like, here I am eating French fries. I got to get it together. Everybody around me is doing it. And I'm just like a workaholic on survival mode.
I'm seeing you. I see you showing up in the mornings. And
sometimes I'll go walking, but then it's like I'll do 2-3 days and then I'll do 2 weeks where I don't show up. And
but you know what? It's 2-3 days more than what you were doing.
Yeah.
So
I just got to make it more consistent with it. And I do love when I do it. It's just finding a happy balance with it. I don't know. I've never liked working out.
Maybe that's why God's bringing other people in your life.
No, seriously. He has. Even with 66 Bay, like he runs almost every morning.
I live for the 66 Bay updates. I live for them. 66 Bay, he's so cute.
I mean, I even jinx it because he's like, he loves being behind the scenes. I love that he's like, posts maybe once a year. Like he's cool being behind the scenes. It reminds me of, like, if it ever to work out, he's not allowed to listen, so you can listen to this. If it were ever to work out, I want it to be like a Tabitha Brown and her husband situation.
Yes.
Where they've been together and he's just like, he lets her be her. Oh, can love it. But I don't know where it's going. We're not gonna talk about my daily
process.
Life.
Enjoy it.
And I'm taking things so almost is like it's about to go backwards because it's so slow. But it's moving now. It's moving. We'll see. I don't know. I gotta talk to my therapist tomorrow. I scheduled an appointment. It stresses me out. It stresses me out. Well, another thing about you two that I wanted to talk about is, especially with me, I date outside of my culture, and I guess essentially you guys aren't a different culture, but kinda?
Yeah.
It has to be.
It is. People assume that just because we're both
Hispanic.
Spanish and Latin and like that, we just immediately click.
From the same vein.
And there are so many things to this day, 12 years in, that will still come up that I'm like, oh, that's such a Mexican thing. The kids are definitely not taking that on. That part, we're keeping that part out.
Well, when she just mentioned Mexican.
Versa.
So Carlos is from Mexico, born and raised?
I was actually born in the States.
Just kidding.
Mexican parents.
No, but raised
very.
Because I feel like you
on the border. Well, he lived in a border town.
Oh, you're down there with all.
Yeah.
That's like Kissimmee. You can't tell me, oh my God, you're from Puerto Rico.
Exactly.
Like
he would literally go to school and sleep in the U.S., but then church, friends, family was all in Mexico, and they would literally cross every day.
Oh, you're absolutely Mexican.
So, yeah.
Like arriba, Mexican.
Yes.
And then I knew he was Mexican. He works with his sister, Viv, who I absolutely adore. I love her little quiet self, but I feel like me and Viv can get down.
Yeah.
I can't wait to go on a trip with her. It's gonna be so much fun.
You have a similar aura.
I love him. But then when I finally meet you, he's like my wife, and then I hear you talking. I'm like, where is she from? And she's Dominican. I said, well, how'd that happen? A Dominican and a Mexican. I feel like in the Hispanic culture, you're like, how does that even happen?
Welcome to Florida.
Yes. Welcome to the melting pot.
Married for 12 years. Together for how long?
12 years. 13. Yeah, we were quick.
Boom. I knew.
Started dating. He knew.
Aww.
I knew.
She knew, but I knew, right?
Well, I know there was a story.
I had to ask him, what's up? Like, what's going on?
What are we doing?
What's your deal? Like are you gonna ask me out or not? Because
girl, calm down.
You know.
Ooh. Well, who was it? The one he had a girlfriend or you had a boyfriend?
He had a girlfriend.
One of the kids brought it up, right?
We had I was dating somebody else. psycho. God freed me from that.
Won't he?
I thought she was super cute because our friends were setting us up.
Oh, you guys have good friends.
Oh yeah,
Where are
we
my
had a good
friends?
friend. Yes.
Oh.
But obviously at the time I was dating somebody else, so then I felt bad that I was like liking this other girl, and I was like, oh crap, this is how things start. Long story short, broke it off. I wanted a break from women because I had such a bad experience with drama,
Okay.
and it only took me a month.
Yeah.
And
A
she was
month
like,
later, I'm
knock,
like,
knock.
what's your deal? What are we doing? Because I see you seeing me. Like, what's going
I was
on?
like, man, this is snobby
But yeah,
girl.
but I mean, we started dating. 11 months later, we were engaged, and 6 months after that, we were married. And then we've been together ever since.
How old were you guys at this time?
Oh,
She was
25.
27.
And he was 27.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
we
just
were
turned
really young.
27, and she was about to turn 25 when we got married.
Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all don't do this.
Yeah,
at
no.
home.
This
Don't try this. This is one of those. Don't try this at
Don't
home.
try this at home.
Make sure that, or really talk to. I mean, I thought I was talking to God when I did it, and clearly I didn't talk long enough. So don't try this at home. But that is really dope that you guys would do that. You have completely different cultures because the
Yeah.
Mexican culture is completely different from the Dominican culture to
Yes.
my Puerto Rican culture. I feel like I would be closer to
Yeah, you and I would probably be
right,
closer.
but I have known Mexicans, and it's like y'all speak different. You guys move different. Your family values are so different.
Yeah.
So how do you guys have any, not conflict, but like what's one of the biggest things that you've had to maneuver being from different cultures?
Bueno, o sea, no mames, güey, pero.
No, so I think for
Bien
us,
chingón.
a couple things. I mean, we both come. It's interesting. Like, even though we have very strong family values, and we come from big families, like we both come from big families. I think the meshing of like me coming into his space. I think more me coming into his space. He's the only son. So the only boy, the
You're
oldest.
But not an only child.
No,
'cause
not only
clearly she's here.
child. So he has 3 younger sisters, but he's the only boy, the
Oh,
oldest.
God, mama's boy for sure.
Mama's
100%.
boy,
I'm proud of it, too.
1002%. And his mom, too, being very attached to him. Like, I remember, I mean, we were married at that point, maybe 3 years in. Sebastian was a baby. And I remember I was holding Sebastian, and her and I have the best relationship now.
that.
So, but we were very open about, it was a rough beginning. And I remember having Sebastian in my arms, and she's like, you'll see one day. I still can't get used to not being, the number one woman in my son's life. And I'm like, ma'am, I've been married to your son for 3. I am holding his child. What do you mean you're still not used to?
Well, I'm gonna need you to get used to it. She's like, no.
So that dynamic, like, you know how the stereotype of like the Mexican mother-in-law and like, I didn't realize how ingrained like just that relationship of like like in my family, I feel like my dad, like it's the patriarch, like there's this thing there. But in Mexican culture, I really feel like it's the mom is really.
I saw it in Coco.
Yes.
The movie, like the great grandma, like it's like they have so much respect for her.
My
For
mom
sure.
is la matriarca.
Yes.
Okay.
Like 100%.
I think our great grandkids will. Like,
Coco's mom, Coco's
Mama
grandma
Norma.
was literally like Carlos's mom. Like she's
Wow.
like, and eat
The one that was,
tamales
like-
and eat more tamales and eat more like that is literally
Wow.
your mom.
So how do you deal with that as a man, and how do you deal with that as a wife?
Yeah.
Because
So
wouldn't you be the one to have to set those boundaries?
Well, I do. So this is
Yeah.
where I think it's great that I'm a leader in my own way, and it's like, Mom, I love you, I respect you, but this is my line. And she's great at knowing and understanding that because, again, she comes from a line of many Mexican mamas, and they are all the same. And she's like, I remember that line being so crossed and blurred that I was like, why is there no like
yeah.
Like a boundary.
And I was
boundary?
gonna say
So
too.
she's been a respecter of that, and
Yeah.
I love that.
as much as she, even her flesh allows it.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
there's
and
times
I
when she's
think-
like, and I'm like, back
No,
it
and I
up,
think
back
for
it
me
up.
as a wife, what's been very helpful too is like knowing she's for me. Like I really do know.
It's not ill intentions.
It's not ill intentions. She really is for me. Like I could call her at 3 a.m. and she will be there. Who are we bearing? What's going on?
Right.
Like she is really my number one cheerleader. And understanding that, and then just being able to say, hey, I know you love me, and because I love you and I want this relationship with you, here's the boundaries I need. And like just being very clear and upfront
Right.
about that, and coming from a place of, I know your heart is for me and I know you want the best for me, for our marriage. Like, and so, but here's
nice.
what's going on. And I think we just need to be open about having conversations like that. Like, not underestimate the power of just being honest and being open. And
Communication, yeah.
the world's not against you. Like, she's not trying to come and ruin my marriage.
Now,
You know
there
what I
are
mean?
some.
There are some.
I will say.
There are
So,
some.
because I feel like sometimes we hear stories like this, right? And this is,
Yeah.
well, it shows in how she raised you, right? And the type of man that you are to
Mhm.
her and to your children and to everybody else around you. Because I feel like sometimes men are like really good maybe to their wives or to their mom, but to everyone else, they're shitty people.
Yeah.
And I feel like that I learned now as a grown woman, that's people you need to worry about.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
ones that just, their character is not the greatest with everyone. Oh, well, if I'm not close to them, fuck them. And it's like, well, we should be kind to everyone.
Right.
And then
right.
also knowing that you need to see the person's heart, like really what are their intentions?
Yeah.
Because there are some monster-in-laws for real.
For real. No,
Like
and set the
controllers,
boundaries.
manipulators,
Like,
but
how do
yeah.
I know she respects me? She respects the boundaries I set,
Right.
right? Like, if she didn't respect boundary, I'd be very quick to be like, ma'am, no.
No.
And I
And
think
it's vice
Carlos
versa,
has done,
too.
and vice versa. And Carlos has done a really good job at like taking my side and like really protecting me in any
supporting you,
situation
whatever
and
you might
supporting
need.
me and putting up a united front. So I
Do you
think
pick
that's
your battles
been
too?
kind
Other
of
times
the-
that you're like,
Oh.
all right, this is annoying, but whatever, it's not that serious.
And honestly, with
100%.
either situation, even with the in-laws, you're like, hey, I mean, come on, we're getting
Yeah.
free childcare. Like, are we really gonna bitch about that?
Exactly.
Like,
free childcare
you
is
know,
amazing.
Yes.
And then not someone, but someone we love, trust, that loves our kids.
Right.
And then it's like, let's just put up with that, or let's put up with this. And it's you pick your battles, and you try to make the best you can with what you have.
I just had a conversation with someone. They're basically taking a step back to propel forward. So it's like, it might seem to the outside world like, oh, you failed or you're doing bad, but it's really like, hey, I gotta possibly put all my things in storage and have my child with my mom while I go on the road for 2 months, right? And I feel like that person was like, I just questioning it, and I was bawling last night at home because I ended up playing, I used to dance with Psalm, like at night before he goes to bed, I play Adele, My Little Love. And then Alexa decided to continue playing music and then played Luther Vandross' Dance with My Father. But right before that, I had this conversation with the person, letting them know, hey, your parents are here, willing and able to help you. Use them, because one day, the day will come where they're no longer here, where you don't have the opportunity to use your parents. And me being someone who I don't have, I mean, my mother's alive, but I don't have that support or that relationship, thinking of like, damn, if my dad, when he was here, I had that support with Ayana. And I remember getting so upset sometimes when he would go pick her up at school and not tell me. I'd show up at 3 o'clock, this long ass car line to pick up Ayana, and she went to school. And I picked her up early and took her to eat and all these things. And I'm like, although it upset me, sometimes I'm like, who cares? There's going to be a day that he's not here. And she was in elementary school. Like, what are you learning? Elementary school, nothing. So, I mean, you should go there. DCF was called a few times.
But
I was like,
but you ask
oops.
Ayana, and there's probably core memories laid
Yes.
with
Absolutely.
you and your, with her.
She went to DR with them. She
That's
would travel to
awesome.
Puerto Rico. She was always traveling with them, taking the time off. Like, they had this relationship that if I would have chosen back then, like, she needs to go to school and not miss any days, he was going to die.
Yeah.
You know, he ended up dying when she was 11. So it was like, she would have never gotten those memories. Like, oh, you could do that after she graduates high school. That day never came.
Wow.
So you guys have that here. And there's some people out there that are thinking like, oh, I just can't do it. I don't want to depend on my parents, or I don't want to put so much stress on them. Ask them. And if they're willing to do it, or even friends, sometimes I feel really like, about asking friends to keep them. But I'll ask Paola, and she knows, I'm like, if you can't, just say no. If you can, say yes. Same thing with Dex. Like, I try to use my tribe, not as much as I probably should, but I know that when I need them, they're there, and I don't have to feel like I failed in that aspect. But
100%.
now that I know that you guys deal well with your boundaries, and like, especially your culture, because it's so different, and I feel like that's the number one thing to make any relationship work when you're from different cultures, knowing who they are, where they come from, and setting those clear boundaries. I was here speaking because one day I went to go pick up Psalm, and they asked me to go test him for autism. And right now we're dealing with the speech therapy and all this stuff. But since day one, Carlos told me, and then you have some of you guys have a son with autism.
Yeah.
And to me, it's always been one of those things that I just don't know much about, or we hear about it, but we just don't know. I had a employee that had a son with autism, and I saw him. He was older, like preteen, and I don't think he spoke. It was clear. It was a visible autism, right? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it's the spectrum, right? Sometimes you see some
Right.
people. Here I am. I talked to a therapist, and he told me I was on the spectrum. I'm like, I'm not a therapist, a psychiatrist. And I was like, me? And then it makes so much sense when he was talking about like the ADHD and the spectrum and how it goes together. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, I'm fully functional. Then I look at other people, and when that was said to me, it felt like my entire world was just rocked.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't think I can survive a child with special needs, but here I am now. What do I do? Like, where do I go? And you jumped in, Carolina, like, ooh, I'm gonna cry.
Oh.
Because you jumped in so fast, and it's like, it's okay. It's fine. Like, here I am. We did it. Check this number out. Check this place out. This can help. That can help. And in my overwhelm, when I get overwhelmed, I don't move. I freeze.
Yeah.
So I don't think I moved as fast as I should have. But I do want to talk to you guys about, you said it took when he was 3. What was that like? Because you guys move. I mean, I've seen the kids, and you can't tell me that you guys have like this, like, oh my God, special needs is not written on your forehead.
Yeah.
So how was it when you were, for someone who's so agile and so smart and in this corporate world making all this money, you're so great at what you do, and now you're like, well, here goes your first kid,
Yeah.
and you have to deal with that. What was that like?
Yeah.
It was very hard. I'm not gonna lie. At the
Mhm.
beginning, it was very tough, very hard, very. I mean, we cried many times. We fought many times. But at the same time, it was life, you know.
Yeah.
And
How did it happen? Like, how did you know?
Well, me and her had sex one day.
That was the fun part of it all.
No, it's interesting because, like you said, Sebastian's our first, and so as a first-time mom, you don't
Right.
know,
Nothing.
what you're expecting when you're expecting.
You know
All
what
of
Hollywood
that
tells you.
is
Right.
BS. Like, you don't know nothing.
same for me.
Here's what you don't know, nothing. And so there was a couple of things that I was noticing. And of course, I was home more with him, even though I was still working, and I still was putting on events. I had more flexibility to be home with him more. Carlos was traveling a ton. I mean, literally, Sebastian was born, and 7-8 days later, he was off to Germany for 10 days. Like, it was
Sheesh.
just like he was constantly going and traveling far. I mean, he would go on 2-week trips to Africa every 2 months, and like, because they would do a lot
I did a
of live
6-week
events out
stint
there.
one time.
Right after the
10
baby was
pounds.
born.
Just going
Gained
everywhere.
10 pounds.
And so
That's what I gained in that.
he was I started noticing as he was developing that, hey, he doesn't crawl. He just does things differently than other kids do. And then, of course, he's 9 months old. We get pregnant again. His fault. Because I told him
he's
we
the
are
shooter.
gonna get pregnant.
It's his fault. He's a shooter.
She looked extra sexy though.
And-
So whose fault was it?
Well, you hold the gun and the bullets.
Thank
So-
So we got pregnant again, and then Nicholas is born. At this point, Sebastian's a 1.5 years, and I bring up my concerns to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician just looks me dead in the eye. This is where I'm like, the gaslighting is real. You as a mama, trust your gut instinct. Nobody knows this child like you do.
Right.
And she's like, oh, he's just regressing because he wants to be the baby because there's a baby in the house. And, oh, he's being a picky eater. Yeah, whatever. And I'm like, okay, him losing the ability to like chew like a normal child
Wow.
as he chewed for the first 18 months of his life is not him being a picky eater. Like
Right.
he lost the ability to use a fork, like to use his little utensils. Like, that's not normal. That's
No.
not him being a picky eater. This is
Right.
him
Something's
actually
happening.
losing skills. And so I'm like, done with this mess. I'm going to a behavior pediatrician. I did my own research, and I go into like fix it mode. So where you go like into,
Freeze.
I probably go into overkill.
Mhm.
I'm more like
helicopter
you.
mom.
I
Carlos is
freeze.
more like you. And at this whole time, Carlos is like mad at me. He's
in
like, why
denial.
are you? He's in denial.
It's like
you're
your
just
man, your first son.
yes, like why are you trying to find something? Like almost like I'm being dramatic about it. And I just kept going. I was like, you know what? You know how it is. Mama bear kicks in. I'm
Right.
like, I don't care what you have to say. I'm gonna
Right.
keep going. And so eventually we ended up getting the diagnosis. And for me in that moment, I remember feeling relief, not because, oh, he's got something. That came later for me. For me, it was just the instant, like, okay, we're not crazy. And now I know how to help him, because before I was going nuts. I'm like, I don't even know what I need. Like,
Right.
and I was just like, let's do speech, let's do occupation, let's do feeding, but I don't even know what we're treating. I just know he needs help.
Right.
And Carlos was for sure like shocked, angry,
I
all
went
the
through the full
things.
stages of
Yeah.
grief until at the end, I said, well, this is my son and I love him for who he is. And I'm thankful because obviously with all these therapies that we're going to now, you see actually other situations with other
Way
parents that
worse.
you're just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like how can I help you, So you're just grateful to God that like he's got his limbs, he's healthy, nothing's hanging out, and he's fine. And it's like, okay, well now I'm going to fight for you as much as I can.
Yeah.
What was that feeling though, as a man and a firstborn son?
You
Like,
feel you feel defeated, but you also feel you feel guilty. You feel like you did something wrong. And then you start thinking for him and you're like, because you hear all these things where it's like, well, by age this, he won't be able to do this or that or this or that. And you're like, man, will he get married one day? Will he go to prom? Will he go to college? And it's like you hear all these things and you start, obviously, the internet is an enemy when it comes to a condition and you start hunting information on your own
Yeah.
at
right.
12 midnight.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You start seeing things and you're like, oh God, please no. And it broke me.
I feel like, and I'm asking this because I feel like men,
Mm,
well, parents feel
Mhm.
ashamed of being like, fuck, I was, it messed me up, or I was sad, or I was angry. I was like, I can't. But especially for men, like you're supposed to be like
Mhm.
protector
yeah.
and provider, and you're like, okay, let's
Mhm.
go. But there has to have been a time when you were like, it was a dark feeling
Yeah.
that you obviously got over, but that dark feeling still, some people I feel like aren't willing to be vulnerable and say it out loud.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, he
No,
was.
yeah, it was bad. It was
It
bad.
was
It was
bad.
a
He
dark
was angry.
place.
Our marriage was like went in the dumps for a while there, of just like, and because I was just like, I'm not dealing with it. Like, I don't have the capacity
To
to
carry
carry
you
you and
and
him.
me.
What did that look like though, his anger?
He would lash out, short
Retreat.
tempered,
I was out.
retreat.
Like I would
Yeah, just
travel. I didn't want to be around. And
Mm,
then because I don't know what even autism is,
right.
I'm just like, he's just normal.
yeah.
Like you're just telling me all this stuff. You're making it up. You're lying to me. Like because I see him normal and
Because he's your normal.
yeah, I'm playing with him and I'm on the floor and we're having a good time and I'm just like, what are you like? This is BS. Like the doctors are wrong. Until like I started seeing comparison, and
And you
it
have a
was
comparison with
with
another child in the house.
well, and
Mm-hmm.
also his little cousins, his
Mm.
Yeah.
cousins who are
Who
the
are the
same
same
age.
age. But then seeing Nicholas, and we're like, oh, Nicholas is already like, I mean, it's to a point where I think that was too when I think Nico was like 3-4 years old, where we started to see the now Sebastian's getting left
Mm.
behind and Nicholas is kind of
Striving.
just developmentally surpassing him. And I think that was a little bit hard for him to see. But yeah, I mean, that
The
was.
meltdowns were hard to
And I think for me too, like
experience.
I would get so mad because I always felt like he never wanted to learn. Like it was like,
Well, you do it.
yeah, well, you'll just take care of it. Well, you'll just handle it.
In
If
my
he had a
mind, it was like,
meltdown,
figure it out because you're making it up.
So if you
So
want this to be
middle
autism so bad, you do
middle
it.
finger to you because I
Wow.
know you're wrong.
So how'd you get over that hump? Because that is the point where most people
Honestly,
just call it quits.
listen, Jesus had to do it. No, when we got the diagnosis, this was very interesting. We found out in our pamphlet that they gave us, they give you the pamphlet with all this stuff, all these resources you can reach out to. And one of them was for marriage counseling. And I was like, this is interesting. And I told the doctor, I was like, hey, this is like, out of all things, that's kind of curious why that's in there.
Right.
And she said 84% of marriages, 84% of marriages that have a special needs diagnosis, so not just autism, but
Jesus.
special
Any
needs in
special
general,
needs, yeah.
end up in divorce.
I can see that.
And I can see it. I 1,000% see how that happens. And I think for us, honestly, God really did a miracle. Like, we really just it took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of
Mhm.
patience on my side, to
Patience,
be
yeah.
honest, and grace, and just like, you're going through your thing. I don't have time to carry you because I'm going to fix this situation or worry about him, but I'm going to give you the grace you need. I'm not going to hold it against you. I know you're saying things you don't mean right now, and I'm just going to let you process. And that's
And
kinda where we
thankfully, it
went.
wasn't a long process. Like
About how long
we
did it take
went
you to
through it
kind
like
of be
6
like,
months.
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's not, I mean,
It's
when
not
you're in it,
terrible.
6
When you're in
months
it, 6
feels
months
like,
feels long,
like
yeah.
years.
There's
But-
some marriages that never
Never
Right.
recover.
I can see
Yeah.
it just even with, so Psalm, they said, no, we are in speech therapy. He's still not speaking. He'll say certain, like the other day he said hair. He took a whole bunch of gel and he was like, hair. And I was like,
Yeah.
hair.
small victories
Like
are
little
huge.
things that he'll do here and there.
Yes.
But I don't know. We're going to reevaluate him. It's coming up soon. And there's still a possibility there. But then I look at him and I'm like, God, he seems so normal to me.
Yeah.
Like, he eats, he runs, he does this. But then I watch him and I'm like, well, maybe. And then I just feel like I'm also in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask my daughter, because she has a sister where her dad said it's a month different. I'm like, your sister be doing that?
Yeah.
I'm like, but then my entire timeline now, because I'm
Yeah.
so obsessed with it, I'm like, there has to be something. Like, I don't know, why aren't you talking to me? But also, Ayana didn't start talking until 3-something, but she just couldn't hear. She had to have her, I don't know,
Right.
it's in stuff removed. So I'm like, okay, what is it? What is different about you per se? But I find you normal, yet I just don't think some things are normal. Or am I making things up? So I'm
Yeah.
looking at what everyone else's, traits were. And I'm like, well, maybe not. And I am in this stage where I'm just obsessing over it right now.
Yeah.
Obsessing
yeah.
over it, but also I won't take the leap to take him to like even more like qualified places.
Right.
Like, I
right.
have the money for it. I have the resources, but I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait a second. So I'm not quite there. So I
Yeah.
can see how if I was in a marriage with someone,
Mhm.
they could be like, oh no. Or the fact that Psalm's like a little American Ninja warrior.
Yeah.
He climb and does all these things. If I had a husband,
Yeah.
they'd be like, well, he's fine. He's doing boy things. Because everyone
Yeah.
just goes, he's just being a boy. And it very much so could be him being just a boy. But I'm
Mhm.
also like, well, why aren't you, I'm comparing
Yeah.
so much to other kids. And I can't really compare him to Ayana. She was a preemie. She was super slow
Right.
with things. I'm just grateful that you guys are so open
Yeah.
about it. But it also doesn't mean that that your son or you guys are the poster people for autism, which
100%.
brings me to what I saw you post recently on your story. She was on her stories, and then you talked about, just if you can explain what happened, why you did that story.
Yeah, so the whole day had gone by, and everyone's posting everything, and listen, I get it. If you're that mom that your child's diagnosis has now become a part of your identity, and like that's and you feel called, and your purpose is to now be an advocate for that, like I love that for you. That's amazing. That's so good. I know for me, even though there was a time I did leave my career for a couple years because I felt like that's what my son needed, and that's what I needed as a
Right.
mom too, to like process all of that. I still knew, like, I'm still me. I still have ambitions. I still have an identity outside of this role
Right.
that is in my life that will probably be there for the rest of it. But at the end of the day, it's his story. It's not my story. And it's a part of who I am, and it's part of what I'm experiencing as a mom, but it's not all of who I am. And so I say all that to say, April comes around this year, and I got a couple messages and I got a couple comments from people like, it's Autism Awareness. I noticed you haven't said anything, like, just in case, like, don't forget it's today. And
My
like,
eyes rolled so hard.
and I just had to like address it for a moment. Like, okay, hold up. Number one, like, and we were talking about this earlier, but like, I have a million things to do. Like, Autism Awareness Day is every single day, minute, hour in my home.
Right.
Like, that's number one. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from actually living it.
Right.
Now I have to educate people. Like, go on Google. Like, at this point, it's 2024.
Well, if you have
There's a
the
lot going
time
on.
to message me,
Yes.
why don't you go ahead and you make a post? And then
make a
tag
post
me in it
about
and be like, hey,
Yeah,
shout out to
and be like,
Autism Awareness. She does it every day. Here's
yes,
a few things about autism.
amazing. Like, that would be great. That's a great solution.
Like, I have time to, when cancer or October comes around, to go on a walk and talk about breast cancer. But whoever's
Yes.
battling with breast cancer or their family members, they are doing blood work and in the hospital or sick or can't walk. It's like, oh, why aren't you out on the walk? Bitch, I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, like something hurts.
100%.
Or with you specifically, it's every day.
It's
and it's
every
not easy. But
day.
does he speak?
He is speaking now. Yes. So he
He's-
started
oh, we didn't even talk about
talking
his
at
age
like
now.
5. Yeah.
He's
So he's 9.
Okay.
Just turned 9.
Just turned 9, and he started talking really a little more like fully at like 5.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I mean, when they were
Yes.
here, you can't. I mean, maybe if you spend a bunch of time with him, maybe
Yeah,
you'll
yeah,
see
yeah.
like a difference. But if you see the kids playing around, you don't realize that there's something different about him.
Right.
So it's
right.
like, I think that also speaks volumes to what you guys have been able to do
Yeah.
and all the help that you've been able to get
Yeah,
him.
I know, because a lot of people are like, you're so lucky. He's like doing great. And I'm like,
You know how
let
hard
me
it
tell you what luck is, okay?
Luck
is he's
doesn't
been in
exist.
40 hours a week of therapy since he was 3.
Jesus.
Luck is us
Yeah.
literally draining our savings account and
To
going and
pay
living
for
off
this,
of
yeah.
faith so that we can afford to have him and get the resources that
Wow.
we want him
So
to
there's
have
no
access
luck
to.
involved.
There's
It's
no
hard
luck.
work.
It's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of grace. I think God
sacrifice.
has been so good and like to bless the things that we're putting our hands to,
Right.
because the Bible says that he blesses our steps. He orders our steps. So we have to move. It's not just going to happen.
Right.
Okay.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think that's our luck, and I love
work
when
you put
people
in.
do tell me that, because it is encouraging to be like, okay, we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And that's not everyone's stories. Like, his school, they have other children that I know their parents have done the exact same things or more, and their child just, their spectrum is different. Their functioning skills are lower. And so, they have different struggles.
Right.
And it was just what was handed to them.
You mentioned something earlier. You were like how grateful you are for what you do have when you go in. When I take Psalm to speech therapy, they have occupational therapy on one side and speech on the other one. And I watch some of the kids that walk in, and it's like some are in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Others are like banging their heads on the wall.
Yeah.
And then there's times that I walked in with someone throwing a whole tantrum, and I'm so self-conscious when he's throwing a tantrum. Like I took him for his birthday to Disney, and they had us waiting for like 30 minutes. So there's a arcade room and there's this thing. He wants to do it all.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, sit right here. And he lost it. And I'm so embarrassed. And I was with Wendy and I had to like leave. I had a panic attack. I leave. I went to the bathroom. And she came back. She's like, it's fine. There's other kids crying. But when I hear my kid crying,
Yeah.
it feels like he's the only person crying. It feels like everyone's there meditating. And then
Yes.
I'm disrupting everybody else. I'm like, oh my God, I'm disrupting the whole place. Yet we're at Mickey Mouse breakfast with a bunch of little snot heads like that are being bad themselves. So sometimes we are a lot more, I don't know.
Self-conscious.
Of it all, of our kids crying. But I do see, okay, he might not be talking right now, but it could be this. This is that person's like struggle right now. And this one is, okay, he's not potty trained yet, but at least he's not like, with a tube to be able to go with a
Feeding tube or
bag.
anything,
Yes.
So those things are I am super grateful for. But look at that. Police, what's up? I wasn't gonna fight nobody. I'm cool. Sheesh. I was gonna fight them people for her in her DMs, but it's cool. I calmed down. She said they didn't have ill intentions, but still, if you're watching this, don't go on her DMs no more. She working.
Yeah.
She dealing with the babies. You can come over and take care of the kid if you want. All three of them. All three, not all three of them. But to wrap this up, every episode I do close out with a Bible verse, and that's another thing that you guys have in common with myself, and it's like our faith walk, regardless of what's going on in life. It's hard.
Yeah.
Because there's so many times where they pull out a gun and shoot somebody. There's so many times, but like for real, right? It's there. It's in my lap all the time, and you're like, choosing to not use violence, choosing to not be petty or retaliate or just do things that aren't it. And it's hard to do it at first, but I feel like once you do it long enough, it becomes a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And I can notice that in certain people when I'm like, what do they have? Why are they so kind? And I'm like, they've probably been working on this for a really long time. And then I see some people that can't hold their tongue.
Right.
or can't hold their actions or what they do or their impulses. And I'm like, okay, they're not there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
I'm grateful that I had to go through what I went through to get to where I am.
Yeah.
And I think we all have that journey. But I did choose a Bible verse for you guys that popped up to me while reading. And it was first, these names. Lord, you could have made them
Listen,
easier.
I know.
They could have been just all of them John. But first, Thessalonians
Yeah.
5:16-18. And this one is rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And I brought this one up specifically because there are times where I'm like, I don't need to be your strongest soldier. Like,
Yes.
take the weapons.
Yes.
I am exhausted. And being entrepreneurs, being parents, being children of somebody, because we have parents that get on our nerves, or having a team that you have to take care of. There's always something happening.
Yeah.
And we, at times I think I'm like, it has to be just me, but it's not. We all have these things going, and I wonder why. So for this specific one, it's like give thanks in all circumstances. And I remember recently something like me feeling really angry about something. I'll even say it, like my ex procreating yet again, about to have another child when we haven't spoken to you in a year and a half. Your other son doesn't speak to them. It's like you're about to have another child. And this is the second one since I've been gone in the past 2 years. The first one, there was a miscarriage. Right now, there's a woman pregnant. And I was so angry. I'm like, why would you allow this person to continue to procreate? And I just had to sit back and I was like, let me just give thanks for my circumstance right now. The fact that, thank God, he doesn't reach out. You know, sometimes we're like, well, he doesn't reach out, he doesn't help, but that actually is great for me.
Right.
You know, so I'm giving and learning to give thanks for when I lose, you know, whether it's a client or I lose, whether it may be anything, or even if it's not losing, something goes wrong, or I do gain something and I'm like, I'm scared. Like, why is this for me? So giving thanks in all those circumstances, and for you guys, from the business to your children to when you said earlier, like, I'm just going to be grateful for what I do have, because it's all in God's will, and our future is already determined, predetermined by Him.
That's
if
right.
you do believe in it. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the show
Thank you for
and
having
being
us.
vulnerable about all your stuff. I do want you guys to say like anything that you have going on. I know that this is Hi Hello Labs and it's all like labs and content creation, but you have something too. It's another hi. You saying hello to somebody over there.
Hi, hello, Coach.
Okay. Where did Hi Hello come from? Because I like it, but what was
I
it?
was literally home with my babies, and I was like, I need something.
But you're
Like,
talking to a
I'm
marketing
done.
major here, so
Well, I was
this
like,
comes naturally.
I need something to put my hands to. And I was like, you know, I just want, like, when I walk in a room, like, hi, hello. Like, I just want to brighten people's day with
That's
whatever
so-
I put my hands to.
that's
Like,
so
hi,
cute.
hello, here we are. And so that's where Hi Hello came from. And bought the domain, and I have a domain problem. Some girls have a shoe problem. I have a domain problem.
I'm a domain whore. I have so
But,
many.
oh my
I
gosh,
actually slowed
it's
down the
so
past like
bad.
year and a half.
So, yeah, that's where Hi Hello came from. And then when Carlos came on board, you were like, well, I don't know, Hi Hello can't by itself, like labs, like we're mixing audio, video. And I was like, kind of cheesy, but we're gonna go with
It'll
it.
work.
And it worked. And here we are, Hi Hello Labs.
And then Hi
But-
Hello Co is your brand. Well,
Yes, that's-
together, but like on the side.
Yes, that's my brand. Yeah,
That's where you make the
so
pretty
do
stuff.
corporate gifting and all of that. Yeah,
Corporate gifting.
Yes,
So girly.
yeah.
But I love it because we need those kind of girls in our lives because
The
ones
girlies
like me
need a
can't do it.
girl. We
You
need
do.
a girl. We need
She's
a-
always cute, and I'm always like, I'm walking into my sweatpants.
Stop.
Cargo pants. Like, what? Well, if you're in Orlando or even any other places, because now they be traveling or whatever with their cameras and audio and microphones. So Hi Hello Labs is here in Orlando. You can literally do anything out of this place. And actually, when they're going to be doing all of the post-production on the YouTube and our audio, and I do want you to add like a tour of the place for the
Yes.
video, because it just doesn't make any sense how nice it is.
Yeah.
It's like a Martha Stewart like kind of things put together everywhere. You guys can record out of here, obviously, like pods, content creation. You guys do it
Yeah,
all. Then
digital
you,
courses.
you
yeah.
make all the fun stuff look
Yes.
pretty.
Yes.
And then their team is actually really, really nice. I haven't found one person here yet that pissed me off or annoyed me. Like, y'all know how to choose your team members. So thank you again for being here for another episode. What are your handles?
I'm at Carlos Flores.
He's married.
Carlos Flores. I'm the only Carlos. Well,
And then I'm Carolina DePlan Flores, which I'm sure
Yeah.
you'll. I'm on his page.
And she checks some DMs. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.